The average adult in Switzerland, the USA, and Hong Kong are all wealthier than the average adult in Australia, according to Credit Suisse, which makes us the fourth wealthiest nation in the world by that measure. And yet, we have families living in tents.
They're scenes many never thought possible in our state. Young families with full-time incomes left with no other option but to live in tents.
Which begs the question, fact or fiction, are short-term rental properties on the rise, and what contribution are they making to our rental crisis? Full disclosure, I tried being an Airbnb host and it didn't work for me, but that's another story. I'm not talking here about holiday homes and purpose-built weekenders on somebody's land. Let's face it, those types of properties are never going to be affordable rentals. I'm talking about cheap and cheerful tart-ups that were previously rented to low-income earners. And these cheap and cheerful tart-ups are now being offered as holiday accommodation. Some of these tart-ups could even have been paid for by the Australian government's building stimulus. I think that might have been an unintended consequence. We see this in coastal towns. I've even stayed in one, and let me tell you, as I pulled into the driveway and realised what I booked, I didn't feel really good about it. Now, I get it. You want to maximise your investment. And if you've owned a modest house in a country town for some time, you may well have endured only modest growth and modest rental increases in that time. So of course, I get why you want to seize the opportunity. This is the negative side of capitalism. It's also the negative side of our government's reliance on individual investors to provide housing for those who can't afford to buy their own. Our governments have not been supporting those in need. For decades, they have failed to invest in social housing and the waiting lists have been blowing out. In my business, we help those of us who are able to afford to buy property, and those of us who have been privileged enough to be able to afford to buy our own home or an investment property or both have been able to see our wealth increase, and I'm certainly not complaining about that. But there is no safety net for those who lose out in this system, which brings me back to converting low-cost rentals into holiday accommodation. Is this really moral in a location where families are living in tents? I am all for getting ahead, but a system that allows some people to thrive at the expense of others in need, is that okay? I'm all for more truth, transparency and trust in the property industry, and I know that this is an uncomfortable topic. It's something that we discuss a lot with a lot of experts on the Elephant in the Room property podcast. I encourage you to get informed. Be part of the solution, not the problem. Check out the podcast, theelephantintheroom.com.au.